Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here from DLA Ignite. I've got Chris Kirk with me today, and Chris and I are going to talk about social audio. Chris has been on an amazing journey with social audio, and has also done some amazing research about it. But before we get into that, Chris, can you tell people where they can get hold of you?
Yeah, sure. Primarily, I spend most of my time on Twitter, but I started to delve a little bit more into Clubhouse and to LinkedIn as well. But if you look at me up on Twitter, it's just at Social Audio Guy, and most platforms I have that as well. But yeah, most of the time you'll find me over on Twitter. It's like I said, the best place to contact me.
It is, yeah. And you are the social audio guy.
Yeah.
And I'm
Uh,
really grateful for you to come in and talk to us. Um, tell us your journey, because you've had you've come through through from Twitch and into social audio. It's not something that you suddenly went and you've had this journey through, isn't it? So just go through
yeah.
that.
Well, I mean, most people who know me personally, they know that I work during the day. So by day, I'm a project manager, estimator. I've been doing that for about 22 years, manufacturing industry. But at night, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm looking to do some fun stuff. So I've spent my entire life like min-maxing my free time. So, while I work full time, I built a successful web design company for about 15 years. I did that and it was fun. But, you know, uh, I had to transition back eventually to managing streams and esports communities due to like increasing hours at work and just time. Having 6 kids. I have 6 kids. It's
Wow.
crazy. But I did enjoy a lot of time as a community manager in esports, more
Yeah.
specifically Rocket League. But I had a chance to do some amazing things over like a 2.5 year period. So I took a small group of friends who played in random Friday tournaments, and I helped to develop a full-fledged tournament org. We ran 3 events per week, thousands of players with small cash prizes. But I left the org when it had over 7K members. It started with like 200 or 300. We also formed some partnerships, obviously, with the developer, and we had large LANs in Philadelphia. It was pretty fun. The developer promised lots of money would trickle down into the community, but over the course of 2.5 years, spending like 30, 40 hours of my free time developing a community, it never happened.
Right.
So I had to like cut my losses. And obviously it wasn't all a mistake, but it was a great learning lesson.
But you learned loads of stuff. That was the thing.
Yeah, and about building community. So that's essentially what I'm trying to do now with the social village. So not only is it a research project, but it's also a community building opportunity. So I'm trying to create this umbrella community that's all above social audio. So regardless of what site that you live on, you can actually be part of this larger umbrella, encompassing all of these different things. So, from there, like I said, I did spend about 6 years as a broadcaster on Twitch while I was managing that community. Had over 6,000 followers, but I lost interest in continuing as it required too much time
Mm.
for the return on investment, right?
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to ensure I spent my time pursuing things that are allowing me to grow and spend more time with my family, which is super, super important. Like I
Yeah.
spend my weekends hanging with them, right? Monday through Friday, we go really hard. And it was around June 2020 when I discovered Clubhouse, but due to
Yeah.
having an Android phone, I was unable to join. So I had that fear of missing out, and this led me to start doing some research
Mm.
on all those social audio apps. And I ran across an article that was outdated, and it was by Jeremiah Owang, very popular article
Oh, yeah,
called "The
yeah, yeah.
Future of Social Audio Startups Roadmaps." And he listed all of these different social audio sites. And I was curious about that, so I started to do my own research. I built a spreadsheet. This is what I do during the day. I build the nuts and bolts of a job and try to figure out what the best thing to buy, and all that kind of stuff. So I did that with social audio. And what I found was the misconception is that they were spending the majority of the time talking about the big five. And I felt
Yeah.
like if there's 85 roughly social audio sites, well, who's
So there's
talking about the rest?
85 social audio
Oh
apps.
no, there's probably more than 85.
Right.
But I had to set a barrier, right? So if they have a
Yeah.
website, they're formally publicly known, they've got some news PR. There's a lot of companies out there that say they're a company, but you go to their Twitter page and they've got 10 followers.
Yeah.
I don't know if that really fits the bill of a formal company yet,
Mhm.
but I try to have some professionalism. Hey, they've got an announcement. They're, maybe they got public funding because they show up on Crunchbase because you got to have some kind of level of, um, you know, hey, these guys are legit and they're really trying hard. So like I said, I found many different companies out there. But like I said, what I did find though was Twitter Spaces starting up around June of 2021. And that thing just took off like crazy. So and I found a home, and we became experts over the past 6 or 7 months, running shows. And there's probably a good, I don't know, 400 or 500 people in that community that run rooms professionally, is what I would call it. And eventually I developed my own live show. So I used to do on Friday nights. I started doing shows on storytelling, which is a lot of fun. And then I started just doing interviews. So I just kind of like what we're doing here. I would bring somebody in and I would do like an NPR style interview where I would talk to them about, what's going on in their world and how they basically plan to use social audio. But it was just really long. I mean, interviews were 2 hours.
Wow.
And as you know, like that's fine, but it's not digestible, right? So the plan, moving forward is to do the same thing with developers and with creators, but to do it in more digestible 15, 20 minutes, because that's about the time that you need, right? To be able to feature somebody. But my job is I want to help. I have no monetary structures. I have no affiliate agreements. I have nothing. It's basically a build in public website that I started forming information. But the eventual plan is to highlight the different developers and what they do, and then help them. But I don't, like I said, there's opportunities, especially with like Twitch. Twitter. Twitter has a program called the Sparks program. It's like $2,500 a month. So there were some requirements. You have to have a community of over 5,000, supposedly, 18 years plus. You have to sign up with their Stripe program. But more importantly, they're investing in creators. So they took 120 creators, and they're paying them $2,500 a month for 3 months. And then you say LinkedIn. They just came onto the scene, but they also are doing the same thing with 100 creators. So they gave them a $15,000 grant for 10 weeks. They're probably about 2.5 weeks into that cycle. But the idea is now this entire creator market has now developed. So I want to take that and help creators to become prepared, so that way they're ready to be able to enter for those types of programs. So there's a lot of things that need to take place. You could be the greatest creator, but you may not understand the minute differences between what LinkedIn's looking for. You might not know the person you need to speak with, for the same thing for Twitter. So, building those relationships with those platforms and helping these creators to become prepared, that could be anything, how to be a professional host, how to run a room, how to moderate, how to advertise your room. Why would you want to take advantage of it? Because I call it like the Goldilocks. I have a note I wrote down. I call it the Goldilocks principle. And it's basically simply this, like, if you didn't know, statistics wise, Clubhouse has 40 million, roughly 50 million users. Pretty decent base, but it's all social audio.
Right.
Twitter Spaces has roughly 200 million users. But how many of them are using social audio? Well, we have two metrics that we can classify it with, right? Clubhouse has around 50 to 100 rooms at any given time. If you go to Twitter Spaces, you have about 200 to 250 rooms at any given time. Now it fluctuates up and down. So you can see there's a market there. So if you look at Clubhouse at 40 million, that must mean Twitter Spaces is somewhere close to, that metric, but they're also running more rooms, more people, obviously. The rooms are more diluted, but that's okay. LinkedIn Audio, which is just joined the scene, they have 800 million users. Again, same metric. We don't know how many are going to use social audio, and they haven't even fully discovered yet. But it's been very encouraging to see with LinkedIn some of the rooms and some of the different people on the platform that are really taking advantage of it. Obviously, like yourself, being on LinkedIn, it's a great place for companies, for brands, for business professionals. I see often a lot of people saying they found their next job on LinkedIn. Well, that could be something you could also do with social audio. You could find your next job on LinkedIn. So going back to the Goldilocks principle, we also know that Facebook's coming online at some point. I don't know why they've taken so long, but over 1 billion daily users, again, translates into more users for social audio. And then Amazon, which owns Twitch, they have a project called Project Mike. Now, we didn't even talk about the ones that you know about, which is Spotify Green Room and Fireside. Some of those others, middle of the road.
Because
right?
you, when we spoke, you said the top 5. just to back up a second. So
Sure.
Just so that everybody understands, what Chris has done is that he's actually got like a big spreadsheet, and he went out to all the social audio sites and basically has matched them all up. So he has a database of social audio, and therefore that's how he's been able to do his research. So he has that, and that's what he's referring to. And when we spoke last, you said the top 5 were Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, Facebook, LinkedIn, Fireside, and Spotify.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, you know the top 3. They're in existence. They have an actual site. So automatically, when LinkedIn started, even though they're not running a ton of rooms, like Spotify Green Room currently is running more rooms than LinkedIn Audio.
Right.
But you can't ignore the potential. So I think there's maybe 100,000 people on Spotify Green Room. I don't have that official number because some of them don't release them. I just know users, right? And not a lot of people are sharing this data, but we know some other things, right? So just keep that in mind, but it's hard for me to pull Spotify Green Room into that top 5 without disclaiming that they're really focusing on music and sports, so again, it's the Goldilocks principle, finding, what home works best for you. Twitter Spaces is great for brands. LinkedIn is good for business. I think if you really want to enjoy social audio for what it is, like, you should start on Clubhouse and experience it, because there's no other distractions. So you're not going to see advertisements. So you get just the social audio, and they do a really good job of it. And that's one of the things I'm trying to do, is try to have an unbiased opinion. Like, I absolutely love Twitter Spaces. I'm not going to lie to you, right? But I also need to basically treat these things like your children. You can't have a favorite. So
and
you got to try.
6, so you can't. There's no way you can have a favorite.
Oh, I have a favorite kid. I just won't disclose who that is. No, I'm kidding. I think it's the one that gives me the least hard time. Is one I love the most at the moment. But I'm joking. We love them all, regardless of how
one
much
of the things that you talked about was the fact that there's now a marketplace for creators, excuse me, which has been created because Twitter and LinkedIn are paying people. Therefore, we already have there's a value against what a creator is worth.
Yep.
But if we think that we've got how many audio social audio platforms there are, you could try things out on Clubhouse, but actually then go to a very small social audio site, because then you're a small fish but in a small pond, rather than being a small fish in a big pond.
So a lot of people are going to say, why would there be 80 of these? Why would they exist? Well, one of the important things I did on the directory was I looked at them all as being social audio sites, but then I subcategorized them down even further. And as soon as you start talking about 85 sites, people lose interest. But keep this in mind. There's an app out there that handles exactly what you want. So if you're a storyteller and you want to find an app, there's an app out there called Biograph. And they're looking to, basically take your social audio stories over the course of your entire life and then offer you products around that. But the cool thing is, with like Biograph, they're making it private. So like the same thing like Facebook, right? You could share it with, your Aunt Martha. You could share it with your close family. That you may not want to share everything with everybody, but you could flip the switch and say, I want to make this public, and have a public profile. So we're familiar with the model, right? Because everyone's used Facebook, everyone used Instagram, but they're doing it a little differently. You're taking 60-second audio and video, or whatever, pictures, and you're creating stories. But then they're developing products like books. So, if a year from now you want to create like our life in 2022 and create an actual book, Biograph will do that. That's kind of what it's designed for. It's really cool in that sense. Just so we speak about like the different things. There's some of the really cool ones out there. So like mini podcast, there's Swell, Lair, Racket, Lemur, Callin, business-oriented apps such as We Do, Halo Club, LinkedIn Live, Fishbowl, mentoring apps such as Wisdom, SaaS, which is software as a service, high fidelity, spatial audio. Another one's called Hear Me Cheer, which are developing some really, really cool things. Hybrids, which I call these like the guys that have been around that had video, such as Spoon or Discord. People use those as, community building tools, but they also have video. So they're hybrids. They're not truly social audio, but they have the caveats to fit the bill, plus video. Children's apps such as Pina, Pinna, and then wellness apps such as Quilt. And there's apps like for mothers called Peanut. But I mean, it's just the point that they exist, So while you could exist on these big 5, and most people are going to talk about that, there's also these specialty apps that serve a purpose. Millions of dollars have been invested. And some of these developers will tell you some amazing stories. And the problem is Where do you hear those stories? How do you know they exist? So my idea is to bring those guys to the forefront, talk about them, interview them, put them in podcasts, do, newsletters, articles, meet them like we're doing here and have the same kind of conversation. Why would someone choose your platform? Why do you exist? What's your 2 or 3 year plan? So then do the same thing with creators. I want to ask creators, what their plans are, because too many people focus themselves on one platform. So, if I'm a creator on Twitter Spaces, and I've grown 2,000% just for, I don't know what it is exactly. It's a lot. So I started with 1,200 people. I probably erased all those 1,200 because they were from a different niche, and I now have over 5,000 new followers, but they're more specialized in what I'm doing now. Yep. So what's that growth? I don't know. We'll start with 1,000. At least 5 times that, but I've also got rid of them, refocused. So that's an important thing to think about. But yeah, I mean, you need to find, as a creator, you need to basically think about, what happens in 2 or 3 years when these apps decide they no longer want to do social audio, right? So you got to take that and start doing things like developing a domain name, pulling yourself and figuring out, can you spend a day on Clubhouse? Can you spend a day on LinkedIn? If you're a business oriented creator, if you don't do it on LinkedIn, you're missing out.
So Chris, we got a question here from Nick Rayburn.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you predict the roadmap for LinkedIn audio must go? So just so you know, Nick is one of the chosen 100 LinkedIn creators. I'm really making a push on this. I was at Clubhouse. I've worked with Nick in Clubhouse back in the day, and it seems to feel. What's your experience of it so far?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn does look really good, honestly. One of the things that they're doing really well is they've presented themselves on desktop. So, of all the social audio apps so far, the biggest thing that people are crying about now, Clubhouse, you could do. There's a website you can go and you can get onto Clubhouse on the desktop. It's not made by Clubhouse, but it's there. People want to be able to access as a creator from the desktop because you have professional mics, you have equipment, and that's one of the things. No, I think LinkedIn is set up to do really well. The problem is they have a lot of issues. The main issues is discoverability. How do you find these rooms? Right now, they don't have a really good way to discover the rooms.
Yeah.
As far as technology goes, for a beta and for a first release, it's actually worked really well. I did a thing where I transitioned from a cell phone back to the desktop, and I wanted to basically test it. So see, you could go from your cell phone back to the desktop, back to the cell phone, and it works seamlessly. But I'll keep this in mind. When you do transition, these are one time. So if somebody leaves the room or puts their hand up, you see it, but only for that moment. So if you switch over from your cell phone to your desktop, you won't see those hand notifications. So it's like they're one time only. They get pushed once to the device. So that you got to keep that in mind if you switch between devices. That they're getting there, of course. But there's some really cool things on Clubhouse that you can do with event rooms, like having a discussion before opening up a chat room. The other sites aren't doing, and I'm very encouraged by that. So we've always, as creators, we found ways to basically buck the system or make it so that way, hey, we offer you A, but instead of A, we're going to take A, B, C. We've created an entire product outside of just what social audio gives us. So then you say, what tools does LinkedIn provide? And I think they have a professional network, which is really, really good. So you need to keep that in mind. But good luck, Nick. I would say, even though you're basically become part of the creator program on LinkedIn, take advantage of the fact that there's a existing social audio base on Twitter and Clubhouse to talk about what you're doing on LinkedIn. So it's funny, right? That you would go and see a LinkedIn Clubhouse or LinkedIn room on Clubhouse or a LinkedIn room on Twitter Spaces, but it happens. And I think that the community kind of crosses over in some way, but, don't ignore that. Like, this is a great opportunity. 2022 is going to be one of the, building years for social audio. So if you've established a community on one of these services, then take advantage of that. But like I said, don't ignore the fact that who knows what happens in 2 or 3 years. So make sure you have some type of presence with the other apps, Clubhouse, Twitter. Twitter is the place where all brands exist. If you're a brand, you have a Twitter page. So if you're looking at big brands, or that's what your creator profile is, well, you can't really ignore Twitter Spaces, or you can't really ignore Twitter. Now, you could be on LinkedIn wholeheartedly, but you could still advertise your spaces on Twitter, and whatever the case may be. So don't miss that that opportunity. That's pretty much it. My goal obviously is to help as many people as possible and stay neutral for as long as possible. And I'm building this in public, so it's just, I didn't think at first that I had a product, right? And then I eventually realized that, the whole thing I'm taking on and the idea of creating this niche community. So we didn't talk about that, but niche community is basically taking that whole umbrella and then figuring out. So you have 4 or 5 different things that you may resonate with. So maybe it's Twitter Spaces, maybe you like poetry, maybe you like writing. Well, there's niches. So taking those niches and building smaller communities of 20 or 30 or 40 people who resonate. So part of my goal with this website, the next evolution is to start allowing people to categorize themselves, and then having a discoverability module. So they only see the people that fall into the niches that they love. Why is that important? Well, if you find 20 or 30 people with like-mindedness and you put them together in a room, you automatically know that you resonate. So why wouldn't you automatically just follow every one of those people? Because you already know you're in the same thought process. So then rooms would basically be generated around those niches. So we discover what those are as we discover our creators and our listeners. As they build their profiles, we see what niches they fall in. So as we see 50 people pop up who love podcasting, well, now we create a group around podcasting. We include all those members into it. And, they see this miniature community develop amongst the larger umbrella, which is important. And it's independent of every platform. So, you don't have to worry about, is this platform going to die? You know what I mean? That's super important. So,
Chris, I've let you go on. I know we're over time. I've let you go on because I find it fascinating. I find the subject about community and community building fascinating. It's something I wrote about in my book, Social Selling, and it's still something that I think is so powerful for companies and brands in the way of motivating people that have similar ideas. And by doing that, what you do is you get people that you get not only just sharing ideas, but all kinds of things can happen. Jeremy Scrivens in Australia has written about it, what he calls social rooms, which is where he's seen innovation take place through companies. And it's kind of the power of the internet that you're in America, I'm in the UK. We could have someone from Australia on. We could get Keith Keller from Australia on, and we're collaborating across the world, and that's so powerful.
It's a beautiful thing, and so last they say, where is this going? What am I doing? So right now I hold a weekly room on Twitter Spaces on Friday nights called This Week in Social Audio. So I'm talking about upcoming spaces, no matter what platform it's on, that I see as being great. So I want to take featured creators, so creators that are really making a difference, and I want to highlight the things they're working on. So part of a segment of that newscast, This Week in Social Audio, will be about featuring those creators and what they're doing over the next week. And then talking about the latest subjects. So we talked about LinkedIn, we talked about Project Mike. These will be actual, like a news broadcast. I want to talk about it, discuss it, maybe have a panel, maybe have a guest that can give us more insight on what's happening in social audio. Also, that time doing the same thing, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, interviewing developers, interviewing creators, holding open mics where we can listen to the community about what they want. And then ultimately redistributing that to an RSS feed. So it's not just ephemeral, one time only. It becomes evergreen content for all of social audio, right? And then someone's told me that I should move that to the blockchain. You can't get away from a social audio conversation without talking about blockchain, NFT, or podcasting 2.0.
You got to move it. Go put your content on the blockchain, Chris.
So someone told me, and like I said, if one person tells you, that's one thing. When 2 or 3 people start telling you, as a friend of mine, Bobby Umar, said, you need to start thinking about what do you need to do. So I've heard 2 or 3 people talk about moving your content to the blockchain.
I did an interview. I did an interview on here just 2 weeks ago about it.
It's crazy, right? I mean, and the thing is you don't have to do any more work, but you can monetize your product and put it on for podcasting.
You can put it rather at the moment that you put it on. You have to put it on lots of platforms. With the blockchain, you put it on once, and it distributes itself. So I did an interview with Jennifer Navarrete.
Yep. She's a good friend of mine, actually.
I'm sure she is. And she's doing stuff about putting content on the blockchain. I've had a lot of really good feedback from that interview on Twitter and stuff. She knows.
She just finished up 30 days talking about that.
She's done a course. For those that want to know, if you go to Jennifer Navarrete's website, there's a 30-day course that you can do free charge.
Yeah, and I think she's got all those recordings still available, so you can go through it and figure it all out. But she's running like daily classes. I'm not sure she's doing the daily classes now that the 30 days wrapped up, but yeah, she's an amazing resource. And that's the thing. And all these different sites, I'm meeting some people who have really some great expertise, and talking about this stuff. I mean, it's amazing. Like, I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy that knows how to put information together. Now I'm meeting experts and I'm learning every single day. So that that's the greatest thing social audio has done for me, is it's becoming a learning tool. So I wanted to thank you for giving me
welcome, Chris.
time here.
So insightful, and thanks for everybody that's engaged. And I hope the people that have been watching it have got something from it. I run these to apart from highlighting you, Chris, it's about getting some of the knowledge out there as well, and getting, we all need to stay up and keep our digital knowledge. Chris, remind people where they can get hold of you.
Yeah, on Twitter, it's a SocialAudioGuy. I literally had to change my name, and I think it was a great decision. I did this before I knew.
Yes, it was a great one, picking that one. Yes.
Yeah, so you could find me on there mostly. DM me on there. You can, and you can also visit the website, which is thesocialvillage.net, and you can check out the actual directory, and there's news articles and stuff like that. So I try to keep it updated with the current information, and we are starting to feature creators. So if you're a creator on one of these platforms and you want to be featured, then reach out to me. And there's no barrier and there's no costs. It's just basically me looking to connect with creators and give them an opportunity to talk about what they do. So if you're a creator, reach out.
Get in touch. Chris, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing us that insight. I know you've got to get off to work, haven't you? So but, thank you so much again for today.
Thank you so much as well.
Thank
you. I look forward to talking to you soon in the future.